Greetings everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna focus primarily on actually rich media comics for a change. I was approached by an artist, a comic artist that does a series for an online publisher called Saturday AM. His name is Anthony Jackson, and we're gonna actually convert one of his pages that was used for online and for printing into a rich media comic through the comic machine. So let's first look at the source material. This is the page it was sent over by Anthony. It's for a book called Mutton Shop, and we're going to reproduce it in rich media format on the comic machine three different ways. The first way is a strict panel-to-panel view, where we're going to zoom in on each panel at a time, interactively. So there'll be a button every time you finish reading and go to the next panel. The next way is a rich media panel-to-panel, which means we'll actually replace the text with live text that's available on the comic machine, and this live text is fully editable and re-editable and interactive. And we're going to add some in the next version, add some animation. The animation we're going to achieve by actually creating layers from the source material. I mean, this is a backwards way of doing it. If you're doing it strictly for the comic machine, you actually create the layers originally. But if you have existing material, it's very easy to actually create limited animation. And then the third way is we're going to actually cut up each of these panels into separate files. So each of these panels we're going to crop and then create separate files, and then there's much more opportunity to actually create interactivity with that method, and that's a full rich media progressive format. Progressive meaning you're actually going from panel to panel, separate file. So at this time we created the comic already, so let's take a look at the finished product first to see what we're going to be achieving. So this is the rich media version, which is going panel to panel but using live text and some limited animation. This is the first panel. As you can see, it slides over to the next panel as you click, and here's the animation. I should actually make it full screen so it's bigger. All the text was done in the comic machine, and it exists as live text in the comic machine. Now this second version is a panel-to-panel version, so it's strictly a flat image of the page, a saved out JPEG, and we're just going from panel to panel with no added layers or added text. But there's a limited level of interactivity in that you actually choose to go to each page at a time. Now this is what we call progressive rich media version, so we actually cut up each of the panels separately and then overlaid live text and limited animation in those couple of frames there. So in this way, it's not only easier to produce, it actually gives you more control and possibilities. So here I am logged into the account. It's like I said, it's a beta version of the platform. You can, right now it's open to anybody to try out if they want. Just go to the www.thecomicmachine.com, click on create, and then hit the register button. So I'm in this account. This is the comic that we created already on the website, and so we're going to recreate another version of it, an empty one, so that we can actually show you how it's done. So basically this is the canvas. What we're using right now is the Chrome browser. To right now in the beta stage, you have to use Google Chrome to actually create comics. You can view comics anywhere on any platform, even mobile right now. Some features are disabled on mobile, like the navigation of the pages. You can still progressively look at comics, but there's a, I'll show you later, there's a navigation slider that you can use in the desktop version. So this is a blank page. If you bring your cursor down, there's the page timeline. Automatically get a cover page and a page 1, but you start off on the cover. This, like I said, this is the canvas, and these are the action layers on the right side. And then you have drop-down menus for various options. So what you want to do first is actually place the, so we're doing actually the panel-to-panel version. We're going to place the entire page into into a layer without the text. As you can see, it comes in, the actual canvas size is 1024 in width by 768 pixels in height. So when you place an image, it goes pixel per pixel. For the image, obviously the page itself is more than that, so it bleeds off to the right. It places it to the top left corner. So you want to do is you want to size it to each panel as you go along. This first panel obviously is still actually oversized. You can size images that are placed using these handles. Automatically they size up proportionally, so the width and height is proportionally adjusted or scaled. But you can unlock it by clicking this button here. So obviously this image is oversized, it bleeds beyond this, so it's really hard to actually grab the handles. You can grab them to a certain extent and all that, but you can use this scale slider here to actually adjust it without using the handles. It's another way of doing it. But when you get down to like minute adjustments to get the scale, you can actually just click and hold these up and down buttons, and it would adjust it on a finer scale. Alright, so as far as centering it, right now you kind of have to eyeball it, but let's start off on there. So what this, I'll just explain the layer here. Right at the top is a thumbnail of the entire image. First setting is the duration of your transition. Duration is in seconds, and then the delay means the delay before this your transition happens. Down here is how many times you want to repeat that transition. If you go -1, that's infinite amount of times. And then auto reverse, meaning that the action happens and then happens in reverse and then happens forward again, back and forth. So what transition is, as you can see, I set the start transition, the position and the scale of it already. If I click on the end, this is how it originally, as the file came in, that's how it looks. So it hasn't been altered at all. What I want to achieve here is just to have the first panel appear. I don't want it to move. If I see here, if I don't adjust the end, then it would actually start off small and then go big. You see, if I put in a duration of 0.5, this is what I'll see. If you can go to preview page. Yeah, so I don't really want that. I just want it to fade in. I mean, you could do that, but you know. So what I did is I set the first position and scale, and then I just go to the end and then copy the dimensions from the beginning, and then nothing will happen. So if I preview now, nothing will happen. It'll just start off and it'll be there. To make it fade in, I go to the opacity, set the opacity at the beginning at 0, and the opacity at the end at 1. 1 is actually 100%. So if you want like 50% opacity, you go 0.5. Alright, so it has a 0.5 duration. What you'll see is, yeah, it's sort of a little quick, so I'll go 1 second. Yeah, so it fades in from black. The canvas is black automatically, so when the white you see here is actually going to show up as black. And then there's the easing in and out. I always prefer ease in and out. It makes it more gradual. I think it's probably best to have it set automatically by default there. And down here, these are buttons. You know, when you're reading the comic, you click on the next button to actually make a wait button appear. You click on it. What that does is it stops the motion and then waits for the user to click before going to the next transition or image or whatever. And then remove is how many clicks, like if you put in a layer image, how many clicks of the user before that layer disappears on its own. Those will be more explained later. So right now, if you can see here, there's a number 1 here. This is actually a layer that's open, and you have all these settings here. I think this exit button will be moved eventually, but if you click on that exit, you go back to the main layer stack, the action layers, and you see that number 0 is the base, and then you have the first action layer. If you click on it, that action layer has a duration of 1 second. So everything is additive on these action layers. So if you add another layer, you can add more, you automatically add more time additional to this layer, so it keeps on adding on. It is a very simple way of instead of using a timeline. Well, what I want to do is actually move this one image around. I don't want to add any more images or add any text because I want to just create the motion to start off with. Then I'm going to add the text and then add the black framing so that you know, so you actually isolate each frame. So right now it's just that one image, and if I want to move that image, I have to click on that layer and then make sure the start and end transition is set. Once you set both of them, as you can see, this new option comes up called Add Transition. What that does is it adds another action layer with the same image in it. So I'm going to add it, and you can see that's changed to number 2. If I exit this window, you can see that it's actually a separate action layer with the same image, actually. So on this number 2, what I'm going to do is just click and drag it over. Since it's the same height, I just literally have to just drag it over without actually sizing it. As you can see, the Y position, which is the up and down, is at -1. If I want to drag it over like perfectly horizontal, I can just type in the 1 and it'll actually, it would be a perfect horizontal move. This is something I want to add to it, which this is totally up to the creator. This frame is very vertical, so I wanted to actually open it up and zoom in it a bit as well. So, and like I said, this is totally up to the creator because there's a little more dead space above there. And there's actually no text going in this frame. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. It's about right there. And I'll center it as best I can. And so I have to set a duration of this, otherwise it'll just happen immediately. So I'm gonna, for this comic, I'm gonna use 0.5 as a duration between each frame. So when the user clicks from first frame to second frame, it'll take a half a second to move there. It's probably best to keep that consistent throughout. And like I said, I like easing in and out instead of just easing out or just easing in. I'm not gonna add the weights yet, just because later I'm going to add black frames that will actually isolate each frame, like I said. And then I'll make sure I set that transition, and I'll add number 3 action layer, which is this 2 frames here. what I'm going to do here is actually add them both into the frame. Oh, I got lucky by getting the exact right height. Oops. And I'll use the black frame to actually isolate each one. Again, 0.5 second duration, using in and out. And I'll set the end transition. Number 4 is the super wide panel. I'll try to get the exact. Again, I'm using the that's close enough. All right, 0.5 seconds. Using in and out. I'm gonna fast forward to the end here. Okay, so now I'm finished setting all the movements. Let's preview it. Again, there won't be any next buttons. It'll just move from each frame at a half-second rate. Okay, so obviously you can't read that. It's pretty quick. The next thing I want to do is add in the black frames that isolate each one, and then I'll add a wait button or a next button after each of those black frames. I've created a PNG file. So what the file types that Comic Machine takes is either JPEGs or PNG files. PNG files, if you know Photoshop, have a transparency to it. So if you have a layer that and you turn off the background, you can actually see through it, the transparent parts. So what I created was a cropping. I'll show it to you. It's just basically a black frame with a hole in the middle, and this hole is transparent. Oh, sorry, I should have mentioned that. What I did was I clicked on layer 1 first and then added it. And what that does, when you have that layer open, you add an image layer, it actually adds it to the layer right above it. If you have the layer stack open and then you add an image, it'll just go right to the top, number 8. I mean, not whatever the top one is there. So I've added a layer, and then it automatically goes. If you have one layer open, it goes right to the second layer, or the layer right above it. And as you can see, it's a funny-looking frame actually. So what I'm gonna do is actually adjust the width, not the height. So what I have to do is unlock the aspect ratio, which is the proportions between width and height, and then I'll try adjusting the I'll explain these notches there. I'll try using the handles first, just so that for speed. This is probably the most time-consuming of things to do. I'm going to work on the width first. That's close enough, and then I'll use this slider to actually, it's a bit I'll use this this button here, and that's about right there. So what these notches do is an easy way of, because if there's a lot of black in the frame, it's hard to see where, you know, the inside of this frame starts and where the panel behind it starts. So this is an easy way of figuring out. These notches are coincide with the actual edge of the open frame here. So as you can see, the width is right. It's just the height that's wrong. I could adjust the height by just clicking on this, or I think if you put in about 1700, it fits. It positions it beyond the top and bottom of the frame. It's the easiest way to do it. So you've got a black frame there. Now if I play it, you can see. Oh, see what I forgot to do was actually set the end transition to the same as the start. So what I do is hit copy start. So after I position the black frame where I want it, I'm gonna add a wait after this, meaning a next button will come up, so it prompts the user to actually click it before you go on to the next frame. I'll preview that now. So what happens is this frame fades up, and then after that a black frame comes in. So this is kind of disjointing. What I prefer, and this is totally optional, is to have this frame fade in at a half second. So very easy to create a fade in. You set the start opacity to 0 and leave the end opacity at 1, which is 100%. And what you'll see now, I'll preview the page, and then it fades in. Now even more so, if I want this to fade in the same time as the background fades in, you can do something on the comic machine which actually brings it back in time, which is a negative 0.5. Now if I do a negative 0.5 here, so at the half, as this fades in, the last half second of it, this fades in. Well, I actually might as well do 1. So it fades in the exact same time as the background fades in. There. So let me explain that. So basically this action layer takes 1 second to fade in, and then if I don't add a negative delay, it'll take another second for this frame to come in. If I put a negative delay in, what it does is actually brings this back to the exact same time as the number 1 layer. So basically these both are connected, they both happen at the same time. So that's what a negative delay does. So that is much more pleasing, I think. So what I want to also add is that for the black square, you should add in the remove section of it, you should remove after 1 click. Otherwise the black frame will persist throughout the comic, and you're going to get cropping where you don't want it. So at this point I've done the same for each of the panels throughout the comic, and I've added a weight. So basically you can see the weight here. The word weight shows up on the layer stack, so you know where how many times the layer the reader has to click before it goes to the next panel. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe. I don't know. Close enough. Anyways, so yeah, so after each of these black croppings are added, make sure you add the never remove after 1 click. So let's preview it. All right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I was correct there. So if you can imagine if this image had the text in it, you're basically finished. This is a panel comic. You're all done. So there's one last thing I wanted to mention is that there are thumbnails for the navigation that you can actually generate by going to the page menu, update thumbnail. Basically it takes the last stage of resting stage of the comic at the end, but if you like a certain page, a certain stage of the comic along the way, you can hit the update thumbnail at any point. Or if you forgot to do it, you can actually, or you can just place something all together differently. So basically you can add in an image on the top layer here, anything you want that fills the screen, go to update thumbnail, and then delete that layer, and then the thumbnail will stay there. So that's a workaround actually. Another thing is to make sure the last transition or image layer is there's a wait there, otherwise the player won't wait, it will just go to the next page instead of waiting for you to read it. And to go to another page, you just I mean, automatically you get 2 pages, but you can just add pages by clicking the plus icon here, or I believe there's a add new page as well. And conversely, you can delete them by clicking on the exit window there, the X button there. So in this one, it's basically finished. We just go on panel to panel. If you can imagine the text being in there, then that's all you need. But in the next video, I'll show you how to put in live text on the same file. You don't have to create another file to do that version. We can actually insert live text in between these layers here. So at this point, I want to do some shameless self-promotion here. I think a lot of you are seeing this on Facebook. If you are, feel free to go to my YouTube site and subscribe and hit the notification bell. There you can get all the videos and the latest updates. It's just at youtube.com/user/artrendermans with an S. I'm not sure why, but and if you're seeing this on YouTube and want to check out the Facebook page, feel free to go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/art.renderman.5, or just search for Art Renderman. Thanks very much. I'll catch you next time, and take care.